Hello, I'm here today to discuss the great nation of Canada. But first, let me acknowledge that we are currently on the traditional lands of the
Crazy Knife people, the Kiowa, and the Osage of the Shaved Heads.
Canada. History stretching centuries, its humble beginnings giving rise to a jewel of civilization. But it wasn't always so. Before these lands were settled, they were home to the great North American Indian. A simple people with a simple way of life. Unburdened by the rules that govern society, the Indian embraces a primal lifestyle, living off the land, being one with nature. It wasn't until the first people began to settle these lands that the Indian was given the opportunity to be educated. Through a highly efficient school reform program, the Canadian government worked tirelessly to fold savagery into society. Despite these interventions, the Indian fell to the vices of man. The noble savage found his place in society, but at the bottom of a bottle. On every reserve, you see the same tragedy. Truly a testament to the dangers of a godless life of savagery. But now on to our feature presentation. Have you ever wanted to learn more about history's greatest explorer, Christopher Columbus?
When you're an Indian, everyone already knows how you look. Sometimes they have the idea of the noble savage and picture the Halloween costume store Native American with the headdress and the war paint. Or how about that natives have some inherent connection to nature? That the reservation is some tax-free casino paradise? Then there's also the stereotype of the alcoholic res dog. And these are things that are associated with you even if you don't understand it. Don't understand why. People will make that connection for you.
My name is Fallon Melander. I am Anishinaabe Kwe. Home community is Witwamoong First Nation. My grandmother was a survivor of residential school. My mom was a survivor of the 60s scoop. We didn't grow up in our home community. And at school, we really learned nothing other than what the history books said. Settlers came and claimed the land. Indigenous people kind of disappeared. I grew up, having family members stolen from their families and their communities, wondering as a small child when I would be taken next.
As an Indigenous person, the main representation you have is either seeing cowboys gun you down or the actual history of the government gunning you down. When those are the only ways you know how to see yourself, what does that do to a culture? What does it do to a culture when it's deprived of its home, when it's told it's evil for generations, or when it's robbed of all individuality, all humanity, all for the sake of progress?
Even when I was a child, I didn't really know anything other than the stereotypes. The only representation that was out there was negative stereotypes, often played by non-Indigenous people. Was I supposed to fit into those stereotypes? Just questions about, do I speak my language? I've had terrible ones. Does my family suffer from drug abuse or alcoholism? Or I get often comments about, oh wow, you've been successful in your life. Well, that's amazing. Thinking that, Indigenous people can't be successful or often are not successful.
And if it's not that, it's the same questions about the peace pipe or about your costumes. And you're expected to be an authority figure, to be an expert for everyone else. You're supposed to have all the answers for everyone else's sake.
It was kind of the new checkbox to do, make sure that we're acknowledging the land. Often the names are not pronounced correctly.
The Haudenosaunee and the Houdat.
It feels very hollow, it feels very shallow, and I think it's confusing. What does this mean? A lot of people I don't even think understand what a treaty is still, or they don't even understand why the land is being acknowledged, or what do you mean it still belongs to Indigenous people? When the treaties were signed, people that came over were signing a treaty to live on this land and be able to make their own laws, but my people, we had our own laws, our own traditions, our own ways, and we always saw ourselves as continuing that way. I see myself as an Anishinaabe person first. I have my own nation. I'm not a Canadian. I don't see myself as a Canadian first. I think there's starting to be more conversations or coverage around Indigenous strength, resiliency, around our culture and how beautiful it is, and the fact that we're still here after hundreds of years of the government trying to destroy Indigenous people. I'd say we are probably one of the most resilient people.
I know that my people aren't just some Hollywood stereotype. I know what it means to be Canadian, even if I don't live in Canada.